In this video, we will show you how to replace your AC condenser on this Chevy Trailblazer. This will be located in the front of your engine compartment. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The first thing you need to do is have a professional evacuate the AC refrigerant inside of the system before you continue. Once you've done that, we'll start the process. Now that we've evacuated the refrigerant from inside the AC system, we'll start removing the line from the AC condenser along the passenger side. You'll find that you have a 12mm nut holding this together. Let's remove this. Of course, we do have hand and eye protection on at all times throughout this entire repair. Take hold of the line, we'll give it a wiggle and lift it straight up and off. You might hear some vacuum. Now that we have the line off of there, it's important to make sure that you inspect the end of it. What we're paying attention to is the fact that there should be a gasket. Whenever you separate a line from the condenser, it's always important to make sure that you replace the gasket. So we're going to take this off of here. We'll set it aside for comparison. With that gasket out of place, we'll make sure we clean and inspect the line. We'll pause on putting on a new gasket and make sure that we protect this area. Just going to use a little bit of electrical tape for this. You can also use a rubber cover if you want. We want to make sure that as little debris and moisture as possible makes its way into the AC system. Now let's make our way over to the other side of the AC condenser. Looking along this side, you'll find that you have another 12mm nut. Now to gain access to this, we'll just grip right onto this hose that leads over to the battery tray. And just give that a light tug and set that aside. It just gives us a little bit more room. And we'll start removing this nut. There's that one. Take hold of the line, we'll give it a little wiggle and separate from the AC condenser. You know what to do here. We'll get the gasket out of the way, clean it up, and then tape it as well. Now let's move along to removing this cross brace. This is held in place in 3 areas. You have 2 10mm headed bolts, and you will have 1 10mm headed nut straight down along the front here. The stud on ours is broken, so we don't have anything there. Up here we do have our 10mm headed bolts, so we'll remove the pair of those. Now we can start removing the cross member that comes across the front here. You'll find that there's 2 10mm bolts that are holding the grill to this cross member. And then you also have 6 13mm headed bolts. There's 2 on each side and 2 in the center. With all the bolts out of there, we can take hold of this and wiggle it around. Let's start bringing this up and out of place here. You can set this aside. Next, we're going to start dislodging the front grille from the assembly behind it. You'll find that you have several locking clips holding this in place. Now there is a couple locking clips down along the bottom. You can carefully reach down there. Sometimes if you just go ahead and give it a tug, it will separate as well. There we go. Let's set the grill aside. Now we can make our way to our final mounting bolt in this area, which is located right down along the front here. As you can see in the reflection of the mirror, it's on the opposite side here. Use our 13mm on a 1/4 inch drive. Try to get right behind here. Can be a little bit difficult to make your way in. of there. Now we can take hold of this entire bracket. We'll start lifting it up. You do still have the hood release cable attached. We'll set this aside. Now we can remove our coolant overflow hose. Let's put these on here. It is common to still have a little bit of coolant in this area. Try to release as little as possible. There we go. I'll set this hose aside for now. Now we can move underneath that area for our 10mm headed mounting bolt. Let's make our way over to the other side of the AC condenser. We'll start removing that 10mm headed bolt. There's that one. We'll remove the hose from the area here. Just go ahead and take hold of that. Should slide through. With that hose out of the way, let's dislodge this wiring harness. There we are. Set that aside. Now for a little bit more slack in this area, we're going to continue along each side. You'll find that you have two 10mm headed bolts to remove. On the passenger side, you will have a hood prop bracket that we will have to reinstall. Get this out of here. Now let's move over to the driver's side and do the same thing. You'll notice that you do not have a hood prop bracket in this area. With the bolts out of there, we'll continue on to dislodging the headlamp assembly from the area. You can use a hook or a flat blade screwdriver. We just want to lift up on this hook enough that you can gently start tugging the headlamp away. You'll have an inboard clip and an outboard clip. They're both the exact same. You just want to gently pry them up so you can pull the headlamp away from the vehicle. We do have wiring along the backside there, and we don't want to cause damage to that. Let's start disconnecting our wiring harnesses along the back side of the headlamp assembly. Just pry up on that locking tab. We'll do a quick check on every one of the electrical connectors as we continue. If you need to, you can also just remove the entire bulb assembly. That's fine. Set this aside. The next thing we'll do is start pushing our wiring harnesses along the back side of this. Obviously, you want to pay attention to exactly where each one of them went. So it comes through this hole here. Now down in the far corner, you have another 10mm headed bolt. Let's continue making our way across. Bolt broke. In the center, you will have a push clip. To remove this, you can use a trim tool or just a flat blade screwdriver, whatever works best for you. Now we'll continue on to doing the exact same thing on the other side of the vehicle. There should be a 10mm bolt here. We'll remove the headlamp assembly, remove all the wiring harnesses, push it behind there, and remove our final bolt over in the far corner. Now we can start bringing this out of here. We'll be careful for our bumper cover. We don't want to cause any damage to that. Remove this from the vehicle. Now with all that out of the way, if you were to look along the front of the AC condenser, you'll find that you have 4 gray locking tabs that are holding a wiring harness in place. You can use a screwdriver or a trim tool to gently pry these out of place. That one already came loose. There we are. Now we can take hold of the AC condenser, and we're going to start lifting it up along the driver's side first, bringing it up at an angle, and then we'll bring it up and out. There it is, friend. Now that we have the AC condenser out of the vehicle, the next thing we want to do is pay attention to the radiator. Looking at the radiator, just like the AC condenser, it has a whole bunch of cooling fins. We want to make sure that these are nice and clean and they're not peened over in any way. If you found that you had some debris, go ahead and spray it down lightly with a garden hose. Never use compressed air or a pressure washer, you will cause damage. Now we can prepare to install our brand new AC condenser. As we take this and start bringing it down into place, you want to pay attention along the front of the radiator. On each side there is one hook that the bottom of the AC condenser will slide into. On the bottom of that new AC condenser you have these tabs. That's the area that will slide into the hook. As we start bringing this down into place, we want to be extremely careful not to damage the fins on the radiator or our brand new AC condenser, of course. We'll come down at an angle, starting with the passenger side first. Just swoop this down and then we'll roll it into place along the driver's side as well. As I bring it down, I'm paying attention to those two hooks down along each corner. One on each side. That slid right down. Now we can put in the bolts that hold the AC condenser to the radiator. Double check to make sure those two are secured together properly. Now we can re-secure our wiring harness. Just press this in along the way. This one's broken. This one over here. If it feels as though a lot of these are broken, you can use a wire tie. You want to try to have this held in place so it doesn't fall down and potentially get damaged. We still have several of our clips holding it. That should hold well enough. Now we can continue on to installing our AC line mounting studs into the brand new AC condenser. You'll have one for each port. Along the top of it, you'll find that you have an area that you can use a 6mm socket. The process for one is the same for either. You just go ahead and start it in, bottom it out, and then we'll torque it to 40 inch-pounds. Okay, there's snug. Got our little torque wrench here. We'll repeat the process for the other side. This side we're torquing to 40 inch-pounds as well. The next thing we need is a measuring cup. We want to add 1 ounce of clean PAG oil to the AC condenser. Let's put this right inside the funnel here. I've got my line. Let's get over to the vehicle. We'll use a funnel for this. Now we can start adding that PAG oil. Just do this slowly so it can make its way into the system. We're going to continue on with the lines. We'll remove our protective tape from the area, wipe it down one last time, and continue on with our brand new gasket. Now, as for the gasket, it's always a good idea to use a little bit of clean PAG oil. That's the specific oil that you need for your AC system. We'll just apply a thin amount with a gloved finger right on the line here. At this point, we can slide the gasket on, should slide right on, nice and easy. Take the line and put it in place over the AC condenser. At this point, we can remove the cover from the port on the AC condenser. We'll slide this down into position. We should feel no resistance. Continue on with your 13mm nut. Start it on, snug it up, and torque it to 21 foot-pounds. Double check to make sure your line's completely seated as it needs to be, and then go over to the other side of the vehicle and do the exact same thing. Let's get this plastic housing back in place. When we were removing it, I had mentioned to pay attention to where each and every one of your wiring harnesses comes through. We'll do the same on both sides. Now let's start paying attention to the center here. We're going to flex the front bumper cover away, and we'll put it up and over the top of this piece. The center's the hardest part. Now we'll mount in this bottom area here. On our particular vehicle, one bolt was previously broken and the other bolt broke while we were trying to remove it. What you would want to do is just go ahead and install both of those two 10mm headed bolts. Once you've done that, make your way back to the center here. We'll put in our push clip by pressing in the outer portion first and locking it in with the center. Just double check to make sure that's secured. Well, we can still move this along the top. We'll continue on with our hood latch and bracket. Make sure we put the cable underneath this. We'll start bringing this down into position. Now we can get this lower bolt in here. You can remember before we used a mirror. It's a little bit hard to see. Let's get this in here. This is going to be kind of hard. Right there is bottomed out. Just make sure that's nice and snug. Let's get this top bracket in place. You do want to make sure that you have it underneath each one of these two ears. Now we'll continue on with our mounting bolts. You should have two for each side. Typically these will be paint matched, whatever color your vehicle is. When you get towards the center, you have your 13mm headed mounting bolts that go right down in these holes. Now that we have all those started, we can snug them up. Now we can start attaching this area as well. Should have several 10mm headed bolts across the top. As for this one on the passenger side, you do remember that you had the hood prop bracket. Let's snug them up. Now we'll get the two lower ones. We have one on each side of the vehicle. Now we'll continue on to reinstalling our headlamp assemblies. We have multiple areas where we had wiring harnesses and our bulb sockets. Also, looking along the backside of each one of the headlamp assemblies, you're going to have small bracket areas that will fit up against this body area of the vehicle. It will slide in, and then we'll press these down to lock it in position. Of course, we'll do that after we reconnect our electrical harnesses. So it's a little bit harder to reach. We'll just double check, make sure they're all nice and tight, and now we'll continue aligning our mounting points. In. This one's a little harder to get to, at least the back side. Nice and tight. Do the same to the other headlamp. Now we can install our forward grille. Before we do so, we'll pay attention in this area. We have several rectangular slots that make their way around this. And if you were to look along the back side of the grille, you remember we had all of those locking tabs. Those slots are where the locking tabs will align with, so we'll just go ahead and line this up properly, and then we'll press it into position, keeping in mind that everything is plastic and we don't want to break anything. Give it a wiggle, double check to make sure it's completely secured all the way around. Let's reconnect our coolant overflow hose to the radiator. Give it a light tug. If it feels like it wants to slide off of there, you could try using a clamp or even a wire tie, whatever you have handy. We'll just clean up any mess that might have happened to come out of this hose. Let's come over to the far side. Get this wiring harness in here. Now we can install our hose. We want to pay attention to this area with the groove. That will go right down behind the grill here. We'll just come down along the back side, in between the wiring. Now we want to pay attention to the groove. We'll have the plastic of this assembly going inside of the groove, essentially holding it in place. You can use a hook or a small screwdriver, whatever you've got. There we are. That's pressed in nicely. We can move along to the other side of the hose. Put our cross bracket on over the battery cover. There should be two 10mm headed bolts, one on each side of the bar. And in the center, you will have the area that has a stud and a mounting nut. As I mentioned in the beginning, ours is broken down there, but we'll continue on with our two 10mm headed bolts. Start in each, then snug them up. And then that one down there, obviously. Okay, friend, at this point, what you want to do is make sure you have a professional recharge your AC system with the proper amount of refrigerant and oil in the system. Once they've done that, make sure that they put the caps back on. We'll take this and start it on, snug it up. Okay, friend, we fully installed our AC condenser in the vehicle. Once you have that refrigerant recharged, you can go ahead and start up the vehicle, let it run for a little while, and make sure that the air coming out of the vents is nice and cold. Aside from that, thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.